Okay, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to add a slider to our visual interface, and that slider is going to control the amount of balls that are on the screen at one time. So to do that, we open our XAML file, and we go down to the part of the XAML file where we had added the buttons into our canvas. I'm going to just bring the visual element up there so you can see this as we are changing. I'll zoom in a little bit as well. There we go. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a label beneath those buttons. Okay, the label is going to tell us how many balls are available. Now, we want it to be on the third row down, so it's grid.row, it's going to be 2. And grid.column is going to be 0, but we want it to go all the way across. So what we can do is we can set a grid dot, and it's come up there as my first option, column span to be 2, and that means it's going to span over both columns. Okay. The content is going to be number of balls 3, and that's it more or less. You can see that appears now spanning across both. Now if I go down to, first of all I'm going to go over to my properties, okay, because what I want to set is give it a name, because I want to be able to change it. I'm going to call that balls number label, okay, and then in layout I'm also going to, I've actually set that to the grid, so I'm just going to get rid of that, my mistake. I thought I had my label active. There we go. Call it balls number label, and then set that to be centered. Okay, and then below that I want to set a slider. Okay, so same idea. Grid.row is going to be 3 this time. And you know what, I can take the exact same grid column and column span as previously. I'll just type it out. It's not a long thing to type out. Oh, no, the problem is I had an extra angle bracket. Grid.row is 3. Grid.column is 0, and grid.column span is 2. Okay, now as this is a slider and I've already got 3 balls on screen, I want to set the value to be 3. That's my starting value. Okay, there's a whole lot of other things I want to set, but I find them easy to set them in the properties. So I'm definitely on the slider. Look, I can see it's a slider. I'm going to set that to ball number slider, and then if you go down here in common, you've got your maximum, your minimum. My minimum is 0, that's great, but I want it to go up to 1,000. Okay, and then my large change I'm going to make 100, and the small change I'm going to make 10. The tick frequency I'm going to leave as 1. Okay, and then somewhere down here there is snap to tick enable. That means it can only be one of the tick values. Okay, and yes, that gives me my my slider. But I want now to have a callback if that slider value has changed. So I'm going to double click on that, and that will create a function callback on my value change. It sends through a routed property changed event args. Okay, now like every callback, there's as well as the sender, there's also the event args, and these are specific arguments for when you change a slider. Okay, I'm going to be using them, okay, in a minute. But first of all, because I've set a value of 3 at startup, it's actually going to call this. Okay, it's going to call this function at startup, because when it sets the value to 3, it goes, the value's changed, clear what I want to call this, but I don't want to do anything, okay? Because this is going to happen, and this is going to happen before my world has been created, because this is going to be called the setup of the slider is going to be called here an initialize component. Okay, so this is before I set my world up. So what I'm going to do is, so that I know if this is called at that point, I'm going to say if the world is not equal to null, okay, and for that to be true, then I must have gone past this point. I must have gone through here, and I know this has happened because somebody has actually clicked on it and changed it. I'm only going to do the code in here if that's true. The world is not equal to null, okay? Because that means it's not the startup situation where I don't want to do anything, okay? If you don't, it will crash, and I'll explain why in a minute. So first of all, I want to find out what is the change. How much is it changed by? And I'm going to make it an int, even though this is a double, because a slider can be anything, can be any floating point value, but I've put my tick to be 1. That means I know it's going to be something that can be an integer value. So I'm going to call my, I'm going to make my change an integer, okay, and that is going to be equal to, and I'm going to revert 2 and 32. I'm going to pass in e dot, and if I click e dot, it shows me all the things that are in there. I've got old value and new value. So what I want to do is take the new value, subtract the old value. For the new value, subtract convert dot 2 and 32 e dot old value. Okay, so that's the new and the old value. So what the value of the slider was before I moved up, the value of the slider was after. And if that's positive, so if change is greater than 0, then I need to add some balls. So what I'm going to do is set a for loop. I'm going to call change count, and it's less than change. And then inside there, the world dot add ball. So that's just going to create a random ball. Now, if I didn't put that in there, okay, on that first initial call where it sets it to its initial value, that will crash, and that's fine. I mean, I don't want this to be called that because I've created those 3 balls already. I don't want this code to do anything. So that just protects this from running, because as well as running code that I don't want it to run, it would crash because the world has not been set up at that point. Then, else if change is less than 0, the wrong place. Else if change is less than 0, then I'm going to do this loop again. So we've got the loop, but what we want to do, instead of adding a ball, is we want to remove balls. So we just go to the world dot balls, where we've got our actual list of them, and we want to remove at, and that will remove a given ball. We're going to remove the ball at location 0. Okay, and that's just going to take that many balls out, basically. Then, once I've done that, I want to call a function which I've not written yet, called update ball slider, ball label. Okay, now I'm going to create that as a function simply because we're going to add more functionality for creating balls, and whenever we do that, we want to have the ability to update this label. And all I'm going to do is ball number label dot content is going to be equal to number of balls, and then add in the ball number slider dot value. And now when I run this, I start that, let's add some balls in, there we go. But if I drag back that way, I'll take the balls back to 0, but it didn't remove any. It didn't remove any. I know why. I do this every time. Change at this point is a negative number, so I just need to put a little minus there. That's all. That's because change will be a negative number, and we want to, the value of it isn't important, it's the magnitude. So we just put minus on it, and that means it'll give us the positive value. So if we've gone 3 to the left, so it's minus 3, it will now loop 3 times. So let's start that. We can add balls. We can also take them away. And there's 1,000 balls, and you watch my computer grind to a halt. Okay, there we go. See you in the next video.